Ashley, and as you can see, I am filming in my bedroom background, as I like to call it, and I will explain why in a moment. But if you are new here, welcome. On this channel, we talk about autoimmune related issues and topics and lifestyle, and kind of how it relates to me personally. But I hope that you find something relatable in it. If you are, if I could talk, if you are coming back, this is not your first time, welcome again. I hope you know what you are in for today with my new series. So the reason I am filming in my bedroom is because the part of Minnesota that I live in is getting flooded right now. And unfortunately, the place that I usually film at is leaking and flooding. So I am home, but luckily it is late, but that accounts for the really bad lighting. So please bear with me. I really wanted to film this video today, and I wanted, I'm trying really hard to stick to my Monday and Friday schedule. So today is episode 1 of my mental health series. I know it's not autoimmune related, but it is something that I suffer from. And it can be autoimmune related, which I will get to as I kind of dive into this episode. But this is episode 1, and I'm calling it Why So Blue? And today I'm going to talk about depression. What is it? Why do we have it? What does it look like? That type of stuff. So if that is something you are interested in, please give this video a like. Subscribe if you would like to hear more. This is a whole series. This is part 1 of 5. And please ring the bell so you are notified when I upload. Hopefully Monday and Friday. Right now we have a lot of flooding. Like I said in my last video, my father-in-law has cancer. And so I try really hard to stick to those two. Okay, so like I said, today is episode 1, Why So Blue? So because I want to give you guys really good information, this video might run a little long, but also I have my computer right here because there are statistics and things that I really specifically want. And as you know, I have memory issues, so I will be reading from here sometimes. And for just the sake of brevity, I want to just do this as much in one take as I can, so there's not too much cutting. So you will see me literally look like this. So bear with me. Okay, so what is depression? There are 2 types of depression. So when people think of depression, they think of major depressive disorder and persistent depressive disorder. The classic definition of those 2, and this is the first time you're going to see me kind of read off, major depression is having symptoms of depression most of the day for nearly every day for 2 weeks. And those types of symptoms need to interfere with your ability to work, sleep, study, eat, and enjoy life. Sometimes you can get a major depressive episode one time. And other times these kind of come and go. That's what I have. And then persistent depressive disorder is having symptoms of depression that last for at least 2 years. A person diagnosed with this form of depression may have episodes of major depression along with periods of less severe symptoms. So you just have depression and then you have less serious depression. There's other forms of depression too. So if you guys think of like if you live in an area like I do where it's cold, like 9 months out of the year, it feels like, you can get seasonal depression. There's postpartum depression, and there's like psychotic depression where you are so depressed for so long that it actually triggers a psychotic episode where you have hallucinations and delusions, and that can get very, very serious. Most of the time, people that are straight up hospitalized for depression are having some sort of psychotic episode associated with their major depressive disorder. So scientists pretty much across the country are studying all the time what causes depression. So right now, research suggests that it's a combination of genetic, biological, environmental, and psychological factors. So, what are the symptoms of depression? So I am going to really sit here and marinate on the symptoms because I feel like they're very, very important. So when they say symptom 1 is persistent, sad, anxious, or empty mood, you can hear those words, but what does that look like? To me, when you're sad, you look sad. So you're looking for something that is flat affect, sad. You can see the sadness in somebody's eyes. Anxious, it can't sit still. Anxiousness can also come with irritability. And an empty mood, that's something you're going to have to be able to feel on yourself. You probably won't recognize an empty mood on somebody else. It says feelings of hopelessness or pessimism. If you have a typically optimistic person that is all of a sudden very glass half empty pessimistic, that would be a really good indication that something is wrong. Doesn't mean they have depression, but it definitely means you should have some sort of conversation. Hopelessness, yeah, that is another internal feeling that you definitely will feel if you are depressed. That feeling of absolute, utter loss inside your soul. That is a horrible feeling. Feelings of guilt, worthlessness, or helplessness. Yeah, 100%. Those are feelings that people will feel with depression. You will feel guilty about everything. And it's not just things that you've done now. Your brain will decide, hey, that thing you did 3 years ago? Think about that and make yourself feel terrible as you run it over in your mind. I often think of things that I've done in my past that actually are things that make me feel worse than things that I'm currently dealing with. Worthless, helplessness, yeah. Loss of interest, pleasure in hobbies or activities, 100%. You yourself actually might not even notice that. That might be something somebody else says to you hey, you used to really love to watch The Voice with me every week. Why don't you want to watch that anymore? So that is something to look for in other people and be open if you know that you maybe are feeling some of those other things internally. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, what's up? Why don't you have coffee with me every Tuesday morning anymore? Those are definitely things to be open to hearing. It says decrease in energy, fatigue, or being slowed down. I didn't notice this when I was young, and I've been dealing with mental health issues since I was about 12. But slowing down is definitely something I have noticed as I get older. That it's just mind numbing to have to move sometimes, just sloth-like. So if somebody says to you, are you all right? Are you feeling okay today? Be open to the conversation. Fatigue, you will see somebody with depression along with the fatigue sometimes just not want to get out of bed. They just sleep and they don't feel well. A lot of times with depression, people aren't saying, I feel depressed. They say things like, I'm really, really tired. I don't know why I'm so tired. I'm so fatigued. I'm not sleeping well. So if you are caring for a loved one, that is definitely something to watch for. Watch to see if somebody is typically, an early riser, isn't waking till noon or later. If they are usually full of energy and all of a sudden they're, tired and lethargic. Keep an eye on that kind of stuff. Difficulty concentrating, remembering, or making decisions. Yeah, that really does happen. And you don't always notice it yourself if you're the depression sufferer. Sometimes your loved ones will get frustrated with you, you forgot that appointment, or you didn't mail that bill, or whatever. People get frustrated with you and you're just I just forgot. Or sometimes it comes in the thing of you're reading something, maybe you're at work and you keep rereading the same line over and over and over again. Concentration is so hard because your brain it's just lying to you about whatever it is that you are feeling, whatever that depression, whatever that thing is that it's making, you relive, whatever that guilt, that hopelessness, that helplessness, it's like filling up your brain. And it really does take over. Appetite. A lot of times this can go either way. If you're an overeater like me, like if you've just like naturally been raised to be a comfort eater, you're depressed, a lot of times you will overeat. If you're not, sometimes you will not eat at all or very, very little. And this falls under like a self-care category. And I talk about that a little bit later on, that one of the symptoms that isn't often talked about is self-care. People with depression will stop showering. They'll stop changing their clothes. They'll stop brushing their teeth. That kind of stuff. So I would consider not eating or overeating part of self-care. It's definitely something to be aware of yourself, and as a loved one, it's something to watch in other people. We see on commercials all the time about Lyrica or Cymbalta. A lot of times they talk about those medications will also help pain brought on by depression. So people who are depressed will often complain about aches and pains and headaches and cramps and muscle aches and stuff like that. That is kind of relentless. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes those will get better when the depression is taken care of. Also, sometimes depression doesn't have an outward symptom. Someone may be inwardly suffering, but outwardly look the same. They might look their happy, normal self. So sometimes you have to pay attention to really small changes, like what that person looks like when they're not talking. So there's been times that I personally have been very engaged in a conversation, and the second I'm done talking, it's flat. And then I talk again. And if you're really paying attention, you will pick up on it. And luckily I'm married to someone who does pay attention to those things. She does help me with my mental health often, which is why she's going to be in my next video, hopefully. All right, so who gets depression? Short answer to that is anyone. Depression can affect anybody, male, female, old, young, anything. It does statistically tend to affect women just a little bit more often than men, but anybody is really susceptible to it. Okay, now that being said, there are some risk factors that make you a little bit more predisposed to have a depressive episode. So one, if other people in your family have it. Unfortunately, there is evidence that shows that depression can be genetic. Chronic medical conditions, here's how I link it all back together. I have autoimmune diseases. If you're watching this, you either have autoimmune diseases or you have a loved one that has an autoimmune disease, and that can depress them. So if somebody didn't already have depression, just having an autoimmune disease and how that affects your life can actually, bring depression on. I have had depression or depressive episodes my whole life. So when I got my autoimmune diseases, that just kind of compounded it. But that's why we're talking about this, because it is so important, especially for people, anybody. It's important for anybody. But I am making it relative now to my autoimmune viewers, because we should be aware that it is incredibly common for people with chronic health issues to be depressed, or at least to have depressive episodes. You can be more susceptible to depression if you have other psychiatric conditions. I also have anxiety, and pretty high anxiety lately with all the flooding and everything kind of going on. And that is actually, I'll bring that up again later. But if you have other psychiatric conditions, you are more susceptible to getting depression. Experiencing hormone changes, you can be more predisposed. I think that particular thing is more referring to like postpartum depression, which is brought on by hormonal changes. Addiction. People who suffer from addiction, it is very common for those people to also suffer from depression and other psychiatric conditions. So how to recognize if somebody is suffering from depression. So this is not the same as symptoms of depression. This is how you recognize in somebody else that they could be suffering from depression. Now, all of these things that I'm about to talk about does not mean that this person automatically has depression. It just means that we should talk to them and get a conversation going. You know, my last episode in this series is breaking the stigma, because people, we need to be talking about this. People are dying because they don't have people to talk to. You know, we need to be breaking the ice. If we think somebody is suffering, we should not be afraid to talk to them. So now I'm going to tell you what to look for. Okay, so in my experience, and I am not an expert, but in my experience, when people know that they are starting to go into a depressive state or start to suffer depression and they are concerned about it, if they already know that they have this, or if they are like suspicious that they have this, a lot of times people will try and hide it. People have this crazy thing of where I can get through this alone. I don't need anybody. I'm going to fix this myself. So you need to watch for certain things. So in men, if you are watching for a man, men tend to complain about things. If they're complaining about something that's never bothered them before, that could be a red flag. If your husband comes home and he's like, why are the dishes not done? What have you done all day? And he's never said anything like that to you before. I mean, something's probably going on. Might not be depression, but it's definitely time to be like, hun, what's up? Men, again, fatigue and not sleeping well. If that's different for them, you know, that's something that you should talk about. Men, when they are suffering depression, they tend to be a little bit more irritable. So if they're even dispositioned and all of a sudden it's like, you know, maybe it's time to have a conversation. They lose interest in things really, really easily. I think that could be kind of across the board for all people who suffer from depression. But I think in men, it's a little bit more pronounced, that they will give up hobbies, lose interest in a job that they love, stop hanging out with friends, stop participating in sports. You just kind of like shut themselves in. So for women, things to look for are, you know, fatigue, not sleeping well, oversleeping. Women tend to oversleep, or just, you know, not really get out of bed. Just kind of want to lay about because they just feel miserable. Women can become weepy, and that doesn't mean like hysterically crying, but just like the emotions are just right at the top of where they can stand. And sometimes if you say something to them that's a little bit hurtful, but normally wouldn't make them cry, and you get an emotional response where they might tear up and become weepy, if that's not normal for them, that's definitely something that you should be looking for. Sometimes, and I'm speaking from personal experience here, women can actually become overly productive to overcompensate for their feelings of worthlessness. You know, when women start to feel worthless and guilty and just overall like pieces of crap because of depression, they will overcompensate for that and just run themselves ragged, just right into the ground. And then that just, you know, reiterates the fact that they're pieces of crap. You know, it's a really lovely cycle of this depression. So that's something to watch for. If all of a sudden somebody that, you know, is pretty even starts to just work themselves to death, they're probably overcompensating for something. In teenagers, which I have many of those, it comes out as irritable, angry, you know, agitated. You know, teenagers are not just gonna, you know, sit around and be all like weepy and sad. No, they get angry and they lash out at you and they throw things, and you know, what you think is a really angry, hard to deal with kid, that kid could be suffering. That could be suffering from depression. You know, one of my daughters, and I'm not going to call them out, one of my daughters is very hard to deal with, and I love her to death, obviously, but I know that venom is hurt. That comes from a place of hurt and depression that we are working on. And just as a general thing for all groups, if the person that you've been living with, spending a majority of your time with, or know really well, starts to change in any way that lasts, like they said, for longer than like 2 weeks, you should be having a conversation with them. Open the doors up so they know that they're loved and they are not alone. That is very, very important. So there you have it. Why so blue? Now we know why. Unfortunately, some of us are just a little bit more predisposed than others. I hope this video helps you or a loved one. I hope it helps you if you are wondering, what's up with me? If this kind of, triggers something like, hey, maybe I need to talk to somebody. Or if you have a loved one that you're concerned about and their behavior has been different lately and you're like, hey, maybe I should talk to them. I really, really hope this helps you kind of open the door into that. Depression is something that should be taken seriously. This is not a joke. I did try and keep the video kind of lighthearted, but depression is very serious and it is terrible to go through, especially alone. So don't be afraid to talk to somebody, reach out, take the first step, do something and opening the door to either, talk to a friend or talk to a professional. That is okay. All right, so don't forget, next video is going to be in the trenches. That is what I'm calling it. And I'm calling it that because depression is mental health warfare. And that is what it feels like. And I'm going to talk about my personal experiences in the trenches with depression. It will be real and it will be triggering. So FYI, if you have an issue with that, maybe don't watch it or be prepared to turn it off. I'm going to try and get my wife to also talk in that video about what it's like to love somebody with depression and watch them go through it. Like what it is like to see somebody go through that type of thing. And I really hope that works out. I'm going to try and get that up Monday-ish. I say ish because, like I said, my father-in-law just had surgery and has cancer. And we have all kinds of flooding everywhere. So it might not be till Tuesday, but I'll try. All right. That is it for today. I will see you guys on Monday, ? Question of the day. I almost forgot. Would you guys like it if I did another series like this on anxiety? So that is just a simple yes or no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Let me know if you would like to see a series on anxiety. I will see you guys next time.